The arrivals terminal at LAX buzzed with activity, a blur of families, business travelers, and tourists all moving with purpose. But when Claire Monroe stepped through the automatic doors, time seemed to halt. Flashbulbs exploded like a fireworks show, illuminating her poised figure as she removed her sunglasses and offered a half smile. Dressed in a sleek black trench coat over a crisp white blouse and tailored pants, she looked every bit the international superstar she was. 2 years ago, Claire had left the United States quietly, slipping away to Europe to hone her acting skills. Now, she returned with 3 of the most prestigious acting awards in the business: Best Actress at Cannes, the BAFTA, and an Academy Award. The Triple Crown. She was no longer the promising young starlet clawing her way through Hollywood's brutal hierarchy. She was Claire Monroe, the actress. Her assistant, Jeremy, was practically jogging to keep up with her. "You're already trending, Claire. People are losing it online." "Let them talk," Claire said calmly, her voice as cool as her gaze. "They'll always talk." As they moved past the crowd, Jeremy tilted his phone to show her a flood of hashtags. Hashtag Claire Monroe returns. Hashtag Claire and Ethan. Hashtag Hollywood reunion. She rolled her eyes. "Seriously? They still think I'm back for Ethan Carter?" Jeremy shrugged. America loves scandals, especially a love triangle. Claire's lips curled into a smirk. They're about to be disappointed. The black SUV pulled up to the towering glass building that housed Orion Talent Group, one of the most powerful agencies in the country. Claire stepped out with purpose, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she entered. She had no time for gossip or romantic speculation. She was here to find the next script, the next challenge. Inside, her manager, Lila Gaines, was waiting with 2 coffee cups in hand and a look that meant business. "You're 10 minutes early. I love it. You look incredible, by the way." Claire took the coffee with a nod. "Thank you. Let's skip the compliments. What do you have for me?" Lila smiled. "Right to business. Okay, I've got 3 major scripts lined up. One is a thriller with a female lead detective. The second is a biopic about an astronaut. And the third, well, it's a bit unconventional. A rural reality show." Claire nearly choked on her latte. "A reality show? You're joking." Lila shook her head. "I wish. Look, you're back after 2 years. The film offers will come, but they need to see you're relatable. A bit of domestic engagement will warm you up to the American public again. So, you want me to milk cows and plant potatoes for clout?" "Essentially." Claire sighed and set the coffee down. "Fine, I'll do 1 season, but I pick the rest of the work." Lila grinned. "Deal. You're going to be on Back to Basics, small town life, rustic charm, lots of cameras." "Fantastic," Claire muttered, already regretting it. Later that evening, Claire walked into the penthouse suite of the Sable Grand Hotel in West Hollywood. It was the reunion party Emma Lane had been bugging her about since her return was announced. The entire second floor had been rented out, the kind of place filled with soft jazz, champagne towers, and people who called their dogs by human names. "Claire!" Emma Lane, ever the fashion-forward sweetheart, rushed toward her in 6-inch heels and a backless jumpsuit. The two embraced tightly. "You look even better in person," Emma gushed. "Europe clearly agrees with you." "You haven't aged a day," Claire replied, scanning the room. She recognized faces, some old friends, some she wished had stayed in the past. "Everyone's been dying to see you," Emma said, linking arms with her. "Come on, I want you to meet someone." Claire didn't get to ask who. As they stepped into the center of the room, her eyes were drawn to a man sitting on a velvet settee like he owned the place. Ethan Carter. He looked different. Sharper jawline, broader shoulders, the kind of presence that screamed A-list. He was sipping whiskey, dark eyes trained on her like a sniper. Claire kept her face neutral. She had played this scene 100 times in her mind. Emma leaned in. Awkward timing, right? I swear I didn't know he'd be here. Claire shook her head slightly. Doesn't matter. We have no unfinished business. But the air was thick with tension. The crowd seemed to sense it. Conversations slowed. Even the jazz trio stumbled for a beat. Ethan stood up. Claire. She nodded. Ethan. He took a step forward, eyes never leaving hers. It's been a long time. Has it? You look stunning. I know. A few people chuckled nervously. Someone turned up the music again, and the room exhaled. Ethan smirked, as if she hadn't just put him in his place. Claire turned to Emma. Is there a bar? I need something stronger than this small talk. As they walked off, Ethan watched her go, eyes narrowing like he had just realized something crucial. Half an hour and 2 martinis later, Claire was beginning to relax. The atmosphere had shifted back to celebratory, and she was genuinely enjoying herself, until the party game started. Truth or dare? Someone shouted. Come on, Claire, you're the guest of honor. She groaned but relented. Fine. Truth. Do you have a crush on someone right now? The room went silent. Claire sipped her drink, eyes scanning the group. Her gaze lingered on no one in particular. Yes. The crowd erupted into giggles and mock gasps. Ethan, still seated across the room, suddenly looked very interested. Claire caught the expression on his face, a twitch of hope. She ignored it. Next round, Ethan got a dare. The group challenged him to piggyback someone while doing push-ups. Claire, he said, extending his hand. Help me out. She blinked. Seriously? We haven't spoken in 2 years. Come on, he coaxed, for old time's sake. Before she could answer, the doors opened. A woman in a silky white dress glided in. Lily Drew. If Claire was moonlight, Lily was the spotlight. Tall, elegant, strikingly similar to Claire in features, enough to draw whispers. She walked up to Ethan, looping her arm through his. I heard there was drinking. I thought I should keep an eye on you. Claire stiffened. Lily smiled sweetly at her. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. Claire sipped her drink. You've got him trained well. Lily tilted her head. 3 years together does that. Emma shot Claire a look. You okay? Claire smiled tightly. Peachy. But inside, a storm was gathering. Because she suddenly realized Lily Drew didn't look like her. She was chosen to look like her. And Ethan Carter wasn't over Claire Monroe. Not even close. Claire didn't wake up to sunlight, but to headlines. Her phone screen glowed with alerts. Her name, tagged and trending, was plastered across entertainment feeds. Claire Monroe, the spark that still burns. A clip from last night's party had gone viral. Blurry but damning. Ethan glances at Claire like a ghost from his past, Lily Drew clinging to his arm with the grace of a Hollywood-trained swan. And Claire? Poised. Powerful. But the comment section wasn't so kind. She never got over him. Lily's just a placeholder. Claire's the real muse. Bet she came back to steal him back. Claire tossed the phone aside like it was infected. Her espresso tasted bitter. She hated this. The drama. The distortion. The narrative was hijacked by strangers who had no idea who she was. She wasn't some jealous ex trying to reclaim a man. She was a force who had built her life from the ruins they never even knew existed. By 10 a.m., she was pacing the halls of Orion Talent Group, her stilettos hammering like a war drum. Lila was mid-call, mouthing, "Don't kill me," but Claire stormed in, eyes blazing. "This ends now." Lila held up a finger, finished her call, then leaned back like she'd been expecting this. Ah, Queen Monroe, ready for war? Claire dropped into a chair, her posture defiant. That video, it was bait. Ethan's eyes lingered. Lily timed her entrance like a soap opera villain. That wasn't spontaneous. Lila tapped her pen against the desk. You think they coordinated it? Or they're just that good at spinning the narrative? Good, Lila said smoothly, because now you get to do the same. Claire's brow arched. You want me to fight back? No, darling. I want you to win. And to win, you play their game better. Claire stared, then nodded. Set it up. 1 interview. I'll speak on my terms. 2 days later, Montana greeted Claire with icy wind and postcard-perfect scenery. She stood by the farmhouse, wrapped in a designer trench that screamed city girl out of place, while production buzzed around like caffeinated bees. And there he was. Ethan Carter, walking out of the barn like a Marlboro man, comes to life. Flannel shirt, tousled hair, smug grin. Claire could feel the camera lens drinking in the tension. He raised a hand. Didn't think you'd show. Claire smiled icily. Neither did I. The producer bounced over. Fantastic! Let's get our stars introduced. Ethan's our local guide. Claire's stepping into farm life for a few weeks. It'll be a journey of discovery, teamwork, and maybe even reconciliation. Claire nearly choked. Reconciliation? This was warfare, not romance. As cameras rolled, Claire introduced herself with a practiced grace. I'm Claire Monroe, here to learn the ropes, shovel the manure, and show America what resilience really looks like. The crew chuckled, charmed. Ethan watched her with narrowed eyes, unsure whether to be amused or afraid. Chores began with feeding chickens and mucking stalls. Claire's designer gloves were ruined within the hour, but she didn't flinch. She wielded a shovel like it was a sword. You're not bad at this, Ethan said, eyeing her as she flung hay into a trough. I'm not new to hard work, she replied, just new to doing it under surveillance. He smirked. Could have fooled me. Claire set the shovel down, stepping closer. Why now, Ethan? Why agree to do this show the same season I was cast? I didn't know you'd be here, but you stayed when you found out. He shrugged. I'm not the one who ran to Europe. Claire's voice dropped, cool and steady. No, you just stayed here and replaced me with a knockoff. His jaw tensed. Lily isn't a knockoff. No? Then why does she mimic my style, my haircut, even my perfume? He had no answer. Claire turned away, walking back to the barn as the sun dipped low, painting the fields in gold. Her phone buzzed. Jeremy. Lily arrives tomorrow. Producers just locked her in. Claire didn't respond. Instead, she looked out at the mountains and whispered to herself, let the real game begin. This time, she wouldn't just survive. She'd dominate. The rest of the day spiraled into a tangle of awkward silences and overly cheerful producers trying to inject excitement into every task. Claire was tasked with collecting eggs from the chicken coop. One overly enthusiastic rooster pecked at her designer boots, and she swore under her breath, earning a chuckle from one of the cameramen. Ethan helped her across a muddy path, their hands brushing. Claire didn't flinch, but she didn't return the gesture either. The air between them was electric and brittle, like a live wire humming just under the surface. After filming wrapped, Claire retreated to her cabin, a modest, rustic structure with barely functioning Wi-Fi and a bed that creaked ominously every time she shifted. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, wiping dirt off her face with a towel, and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back wasn't just a star. She was steel beneath the sparkle. Her phone buzzed again. Jeremy, networks want a teaser. Can you give them a dramatic bite for tomorrow? Claire typed back. Don't worry, the drama's just getting started. She threw her towel aside and climbed into bed. The moonlight streaming through the window made the room feel colder. She didn't mind. Cold made it easier to keep her walls up. Tomorrow, Lily Drew would arrive, and Claire would be ready. Not just to face her, but to crush her on live television. With grace, charm, and the sharpest weapon in her arsenal: the truth. Because while Lily could mimic her style, her words, her presence, she could never duplicate Claire's story. That belonged to Claire Monroe alone. And soon, the world would remember why they fell in love with her in the first place. Claire woke before dawn. The sky outside was still an inky blue, stars dimming in anticipation of daylight. She didn't need an alarm. Her body was electric with anticipation, the same low buzz she felt before a premiere or a live interview. Adrenaline cloaked in stillness. Today, Lily Drew would arrive. She got dressed slowly, methodically. A tailored flannel shirt, high-waisted jeans, and boots. Hair in a sleek ponytail, lips barely tinted with nude gloss. She was ready for the cameras. But more importantly, she was ready for Lily. Before filming began, the cast gathered for morning coffee and a casual game to break the ice, a producer's idea. Cards were drawn from a wooden box and read aloud for light-hearted truths or dares. Most questions were silly, until Ethan pulled a card and read aloud, "Ask someone here who they currently have a crush on." With a mischievous glance, he turned to Claire. "Well?" Claire smirked, taking the question head-on. She turned to the group and raised her cup. "Yes, I do have a crush." Everyone leaned in. Even the camera crew froze. Claire continued, gaze steady. "But some things are better kept a mystery." Laughter and groans erupted, but Ethan blushed. A slow, unmistakable tinge of red coloured his cheeks. He sipped his drink a little too fast, pretending not to care, but Claire saw it. She filed it away like a trophy. Then the door opened. A tailored flannel shirt, high-waisted jeans, and boots. Hair in a sleek ponytail, lips barely tinted, with nude gloss. She was ready for the cameras. But more importantly, she was ready for Lily. At breakfast, the crew seemed giddy. Producers whispered behind clipboards. The tension was a character of its own. Ethan was already at the table, sipping coffee, pretending to scroll through his phone. Claire slid into the seat across from him, silently accepting the mug someone handed her. He looked up. "You're calm." Claire met his eyes without flinching. "Why wouldn't I be?" Before he could answer, the front door creaked open. Boots crunched against the gravel. A shadow appeared in the doorway, backlit by golden light. Lily Drew. She stepped in like she owned the place. Perfectly curled hair, beige trench coat. Smile so bright it made everyone else look like they'd been filmed in grayscale. "Morning, everyone," she sang. Her voice was syrupy sweet, her eyes scanning until they landed on Claire. "Oh, you started without me. I hope there's still coffee." Claire stood and walked over. "Of course, there's plenty. We're big on hospitality out here." Lily's lashes fluttered. "I'll bet." For a beat, no one moved. Then the director called, "Let's get some B-roll before we shoot interviews. Follow Lily for her cabin drop-off." As Lily walked out, Claire turned to Ethan. "She hasn't changed." He sighed. "Neither have you." Claire smiled. "Exactly." Later that morning, the first group activity was announced. Team breakfast, cooked from scratch. The teams were assigned. Claire and Ethan versus Lily and the ranch owner's son. A quiet, rugged man named Travis. The task was simple. Cook eggs, biscuits, and bacon. But the producers had a twist. Each team had to gather their own ingredients. That meant milking the cow, collecting eggs, and grinding flour by hand. "This is ridiculous," Lily muttered, eyeing the barn with disdain. Claire, already halfway into her apron, shrugged. "Welcome to basics." Cameras followed every move. Claire deftly milked the cow while Ethan gathered eggs. Lily, refusing to touch the livestock, barked orders at Travis, who quietly ignored her. Are you sure this is sanitary? Lily whined, waving her phone around. Claire looked over, expression unreadable. This is how the rest of the world lives, Lily. You should try it sometime. By the time the teams returned to the kitchen, Claire and Ethan were ahead. The air smelled of freshly baked biscuits and sizzling bacon. Claire cracked eggs one-handed, stirring with precision. Lily fumbled. Her flour was clumped, her bacon too greasy, and when the final plates were served, even the camera crew exchanged amused glances. The cast voted. Claire and Ethan won. The smile Claire wore was genuine, for the first time in days. After lunch, they moved to outdoor chores. This time, Lily tried to assign tasks, treating it like a production set. But Claire stepped in, speaking to the foreman directly. I'll take horse grooming. Ethan's on fencing repair. The man nodded. Lily stood speechless, hands on her hips. You can help with mucking stalls, he added. Lily's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Those are the rules, the foreman said. Everyone pulls their weight. Claire walked away, not sparing her a glance. At dinner, the tension boiled. The producers staged a family-style meal to encourage bonding, but Lily wasn't eating. She picked at her food, clearly waiting for the right moment to pounce. It came. You know, she began, setting her fork down. I really admire how composed you've been, Claire, even with all the speculation about motives. Claire raised an eyebrow. What motives would those be? Lily smiled sweetly. Well, coming back to the US so suddenly. Signing on to this show. Uniting with Ethan. People talk. Claire leaned back. Yes, they do. Usually when they're insecure. Gasps. Someone choked on their wine. Lily's eyes narrowed. Are you implying something? Claire didn't blink. I don't imply. I state facts. You showed up here not for the experience, but for the camera. And for Ethan. Lily scoffed. And you didn't. Claire's voice turned icy. I came for work. You came for war. You just didn't realize I brought better weapons. Silence descended. Even Ethan looked rattled. Lily stood abruptly. I need air. Claire watched her go, then picked up her fork and resumed eating. After dinner, as the crew packed up, Ethan approached her. You didn't have to humiliate her. Claire turned to him. Didn't I? Or did I just say what you've been thinking? He didn't answer. Claire stepped closer. You're still chasing a ghost, Ethan. But the problem is, I'm not dead. I'm right here. And I'm not waiting around. She left him standing there, alone under the floodlights. In her cabin, she opened her journal. She hadn't written in weeks, but tonight, the words poured out. Day 1. The game has begun. But I'm not playing to win, Ethan. I'm playing to remind the world who Claire Monroe is and why they should never forget her. She closed the book, locked it in her drawer, and turned off the light. Outside, the wind howled. But inside, Claire slept like a woman with nothing left to prove and everything left to conquer. The morning after the dinner clash, the air was thick with fog and something more volatile, tension. Claire stepped outside to find the crew assembling quietly. A few gave her subtle nods. Others avoided her gaze entirely. The footage from the previous night's dinner had already made its way into the editor's room. And if she knew reality television, it would be the centerpiece of the week's episode. The day's challenge was set in the barn, hay stacking, tool organization, and livestock maintenance. The producers announced it would be a paired task, and as if orchestrated for maximum chaos, the names were called out. Claire and Lily. The silence was deafening. Ethan winced. Travis muttered a low whistle. Lily turned to Claire, eyes hard. Well, she said with a tight smile, let's give them a show. Claire kept her face calm. Let's. They worked in silence, the kind of silence that screamed. Claire lifted hay bales with a strength that surprised even herself. Lily fumbled with a pitchfork, clearly unused to manual labour. But what she lacked in skill, she made up for in snide commentary. "I must admit," Lily began, brushing hair from her face with a manicured hand, "you do play the country girl well, almost convincing." Claire stacked the final bale and turned. "That's the difference between you and me, Lily. I don't play, I perform." A camera zoomed in on Lily's flinch. Later, during their break, Claire stepped into the small bathroom near the stables to wash her hands and splash cold water on her face. The mirror above the sink reflected a weary resilience, eyes that burn not from fatigue, but from fire long contained. The door creaked open behind her. "Lily." She didn't speak at first. She closed the door with a deliberate slam that echoed off the tile walls. Arms crossed, jaw clenched. She leaned back against the door like a gatekeeper of confrontation. "Funny," Lily said, her tone like broken glass wrapped in silk. "You've always had a thing for entrances, grand returns, unfinished business." Claire turned from the sink, slowly dabbing her face with a towel. "Or maybe I just don't run from what I deserve." Lily's eyes narrowed. "You deserve exactly what you had, nothing. And yet here you are, circling back like a vulture." Claire blinked. "A vulture feeds off what's dead. I didn't realize your relationship was already in decay." The words landed like a slap. Lily stepped forward, her stilettos clicking across the floor. "You want Ethan back. Don't lie. All these staged little moments, the flirting, the bonfire lines, the eye contact that lingers a second too long." Claire took a step closer, their faces inches apart. "If Ethan still looks for me in a crowd, that's not my fault. That's your failure." Lily's voice cracked with rage. "I rebuilt him after you left. I wiped away the pieces you shattered. You don't get to waltz back into our lives like a Hollywood heroine." Claire's voice turned cold. "I left because I had a life to build. You stayed because you needed one to latch onto." Lily raised her hand, trembling with fury, but stopped short. Her breath heaved in silence. Claire didn't flinch. "Go ahead. Hit me. Give the cameras something real. Show them who you really are." Lily's hand dropped. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the mirror rattled. Claire turned back to the sink, calm as ever, and met her reflection with the smallest smirk. "Scene complete," she whispered. Claire let out a breath, composed herself, and stepped outside, where the day's heat still hung heavy. Claire found a quiet corner near the stable, sitting with a water bottle, a sweat dried on her brow. Ethan approached. "You okay?" Claire shrugged. "She's exhausting." "You two should talk. Off camera. Maybe clear the air." Claire laughed, a short, humorless sound. "There is no air to clear. She came for drama. I'm just better at delivering it." The day's filming ended early for a planned evening event, a bonfire. Guests were told to dress casual. Claire wore an oversized sweater and jeans, hair loose and wind-tousled. Lily arrived in white linen and heels, looking like a lost resort guest. The fire crackled. Marshmallows were passed around. Claire sat between Travis and a female producer, trying to unwind, when Lily stood with a drink in hand. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said. "To reunions, unexpected, chaotic, and always illuminating." Claire looked up, expression unreadable. Lily went on. "And to those brave enough to return after failure, to chase ghosts, and pretend their hearts were never broken." Gasps. Even the fire seemed to pop in disbelief. Claire stood slowly, every movement deliberate. She stepped forward, took Lily's glass, and set it down. "To reunions," she said softly. "And to learning that some ghosts don't haunt, they watch. And some broken hearts don't bleed. They beat louder." The silence was thick. Then someone clapped. Another joined. Soon the entire circle was applauding. Lily sat down, eyes wide. Claire returned to her seat and smiled faintly. After the fire died down, Claire walked to the back of the barn where her mic pack was being removed. Ethan followed. "You didn't just win that round," he said. "You owned it." Claire met his eyes. "And yet, somehow, I still feel like this game's just starting." Ethan looked conflicted. "I was wrong before. About you, about everything." Claire studied him. "I'm not here for your apology, Ethan. I'm here to reclaim my narrative." He nodded slowly. "And you're doing exactly that." Claire looked out toward the dark sky. "Good, because I'm just getting started." Back in her cabin, Claire wrote again. Day 2. They tried to cast me as the jealous ex, the underdog, the forgotten star. Instead, I reminded them I was the main character, the role I was born to play. She set the pen down, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled like she meant it. Tomorrow will be another day, and she would be ready. Claire awoke to a dozen missed calls and nearly 100 messages. Her phone screen buzzed relentlessly, as if trying to warn her of something catastrophic. She blinked at the light, swiped into her notifications, and froze. A headline glared back at her. Claire Monroe attacks co-star in reality show Meltdown. A video clip had gone viral overnight. Shot with a handheld angle and blurred edges, it showed Claire storming out of the barn, entering the bathroom, followed by Lily. And then, the screen jumped to muffled shouts. A glimpse of Claire pushing Lily's shoulder, and Lily recoiling in shock. Comments flooded every platform. "Claire Monroe is violent? Who knew? Typical jealous ex. Can't handle losing. Lily's been nothing but graceful. Claire is unhinged." Claire's heart pounded. The footage was a lie. A twisted, surgically edited lie. The real confrontation had ended in words, not fists. But to the online world, it was already gospel. Jeremy called. "Don't say anything yet," he barked. "We're working on it. I already have Luke digging." Claire sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling. Luke, her younger brother, tech wizard, social media analyst, conspiracy buster. If anyone could reverse engineer a smear campaign, it was him. Meanwhile, Lily was basking in the spotlight. She posted a carefully lit video of herself in a bathrobe, eyes teary, voice trembling. "I'm heartbroken. I never imagined someone I once admired could react so violently. I didn't want to make this public, but I have to protect my peace." The internet lit up with sympathy. Hashtag Justice for Lily trended. Fan edits showed clips of Lily crying, spliced with slow-motion images of Claire looking intense, with ominous music added for effect. Claire wanted to scream. Instead, she waited. Jeremy texted again. Luke cracked the source. Original unedited clip retrieved. 4K quality. Time stamped. An hour later, a new clip dropped. It opened in the same bathroom. Claire entered calmly. Lily followed and slammed the door. Clear audio captured Lily's accusations, her taunts, the threat in her tone. It showed her stepping forward, finger in Claire's face. Then, the real moment. Claire raised a hand, not to strike, but to place it gently on Lily's shoulder, to push her away as she advanced aggressively. It was defensive, controlled. The video ended with Lily storming out, slamming the door. The internet exploded again. Hashtag Claire Monroe deserves better. Hashtag Stand with Claire. Influencers, fans, and even former co-stars began to weigh in. "I've worked with Claire. She's always been professional. This clip is clearly taken out of context. The original video was a hit job. She handled that confrontation better than most." Within hours, the backlash began to tilt. Lily's earlier sympathy video was picked apart. People noticed the lack of real tears, the dramatic pauses. Claire didn't post a rebuttal. She didn't need to. The truth had spoken for her. But the fan war had ignited into an all-out digital inferno. Social media turned into a battlefield of fierce devotion and sharpened accusations. What started as a flurry of tweets mutated into a wildfire of vitriol and obsession. Within hours, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, and even the more subdued corners of Facebook were ablaze with commentary. Lily's loyalists, dubbed the True Heart Army, launched a campaign of cinematic martyrdom. They flooded timelines with sepia-toned edits of Lily's weeping face, overlaying orchestral crescendos and captions like "Grace under attack." They unearthed ancient gossip columns, cherry-picked interviews from Claire's early career, and doctored clips with ominous slow zooms. One viral TikTok, drenched in melancholy piano, featured a creator lip-syncing Lily's bathrobe monologue with the caption, "Tears don't lie. #Justice for Lily." Claire's defenders, the Monroe Legion, responded with unrelenting precision. Their strategy was swift and devastating, cold, hard receipts. They dissected frame-by-frame footage of the incident, overlaid timelines, debunked false claims, and posted testimonials from industry professionals praising Claire's integrity. Their digital arsenal included charity footage, fan interaction compilations, and analytics showing how quickly the original clip had been manipulated. They countered memes with weapons-grade sarcasm. One viral post featured Lily's bathrobe moment juxtaposed with Claire mucking out stools, captioned, "While some act, others work. #Claire Monroe Rising." Influencers staked reputations on their alliances. #campaigns surged and splintered. #I stand with Claire began trending alongside. #Lily lied. Instagram stories became war cries. Reaction videos racked up millions of views. YouTubers released full breakdowns. Drama deconstructors offered psychological analysis. Pop culture podcasts debated character arcs like this was a prime-time soap. What had started as a scandal was now a saga. Claire's name trended globally for 48 hours. Producers couldn't buy this kind of engagement, but behind their celebratory champagne clinks, they were quietly terrified. If this battle turned uglier, no one would walk away clean. But Claire? She said nothing. She watched the fire and let it burn. Because for the first time in a long time, it wasn't consuming her. It was lighting her path. Claire's name trended for 2 days straight. And while producers panicked behind the scenes, the internet did what it always did. It judged, it fought, and it remembered. Producers scrambled. An emergency meeting was held to decide how to handle the PR disaster. Lila called her. "Don't do anything. Let them fight. This kind of buzz is gold." Claire rubbed her temple. "This isn't buzz. This is character assassination." Lila was calm. "And you're winning. You stayed quiet. You let the truth come out. That silence? That's your weapon." Later that evening, Ethan knocked on her door. "I wanted to say, I saw the full video. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner." Claire looked at him, exhausted. "Would you have believed me if I told you the truth before the video came out?" He hesitated. "I don't know, but I do now." Claire nodded. "Then let that be enough." He lingered, unsure what more to say. Then he turned and left. That night, Claire scrolled through messages from fans. Support poured in. People shared their own stories of being villainized by twisted narratives, of fighting back with truth. It was more than vindication. It was connection. She opened her journal. Day 3. They tried to break me with lies, but the truth doesn't need makeup. It just needs time to be seen. And now, the world is watching and believing again. Claire closed the book, climbed into bed, and slept soundly. Outside, the digital storm raged. But inside, she was calm. because she had weathered it and emerged not just whole, but stronger. Claire stood before the farmhouse gates, arms folded as the crew rolled new equipment through the morning mist. Her expression was granite, unimpressed, unmoved, and unbothered by the chaos that had quietly reshaped her fate overnight. The production trailer had doubled in size. Fresh branding was being stamped on everything. Something was brewing, and Claire knew better than anyone, in television, change never came without a twist. Jeremy pulled her aside. They're calling it a spin-off twist. Viewer engagement is through the roof. They want to capitalize. Claire narrowed her eyes. A new show? Mid-season? Same setting. Same premise. Just new branding. They're calling it Farmhouse Redemption. And guess what? You're the headline. I didn't sign on for this, Claire snapped. You told me this was a 3-week commitment, not a public exorcism. Jeremy ran a hand through his hair. They moved things around, offered more money. Pitch is all about healing, proving yourself. They think the public wants to see you rebuild from the ashes. Claire's lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. Rebuild what? A reputation they allowed to be scorched? As she stepped onto set, a producer with a camera-ready smile greeted her with all the warmth of a talk show host. Welcome to Farmhouse Redemption, Claire. America's rooting for you. Claire's stare could cut through steel. Then I hope they packed popcorn. Just before lunch, a producer's voice buzzed through a walkie. Surprise guest incoming. Keep rolling. A sleek black SUV rolled up, its tires spitting gravel. The door opened like a magic trick, and out stepped Lily. Dressed head to toe in white, her jumpsuit pristine, her heels surgical in precision, she waved to the crew with the poise of a pageant queen. Claire! Lily called out with fabricated surprise. What a coincidence! I didn't know you'd be here. Claire didn't blink. Of course not. Everything in your life just magically happens. I'll be shadowing today, Lily said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Helping assign tasks. Super casual. Claire gave a tight-lipped smile. I hope your heels are mud-proof. The board was posted. Claire stepped forward to read it, already sensing the trap. The chore list wasn't subtle. It reeked of calculation. Lily had spent the morning whispering with the producers, insisting she wanted a hands-on role in structuring the experience. Now, her fingerprints were all over the task assignments. She stepped beside the board, pretending nonchalance. You know, she said sweetly, since this show is about redemption, I thought it'd be fitting to give you the most grounding experience. Claire scanned the list. Clean pigsty, repaint chicken coop, gather manure for compost. Lily's voice turned syrupy. After all, what's more humble than real honest labour? I thought you could use a little perspective. The rest of the cast watched in silence, the producers filming every blink, every micro-expression. Claire's jaw tightened. She didn't argue. She didn't flinch. She simply nodded, turned, and marched toward the sty like a general walking into war. Claire read hers aloud slowly. Clean pigsty, repaint chicken coop, gather manure for compost. Lily stood beside the board, arms crossed like a queen issuing decrees. Rural life is about humility, right? Thought you could use a reminder. Claire stepped forward, eyes unflinching. Let's hope you're watching closely then. You might learn something. Claire tied back her hair, pulled on gloves, and descended into the filth like a warrior entering battle. The pigsty was ankle-deep in mud, and worse. But Claire didn't flinch. She scrubbed, shoveled, and sanitized with the rhythm of someone proving a point. Lily tried to hover with commentary. You missed a spot, she sang, gesturing toward a corner. Claire dipped her brush, painted a delicate heart where Lily pointed, and turned back to her task. The camera zoomed in. One live viewer commented, "That woman just made compost art. Iconic." Another, She's a walking redemption arc. Meanwhile, Lily lingered in clean areas, avoiding the coop's smell, occasionally posing near flowers. When asked to assist, she declined with a saccharine excuse. "I'm observing today, getting a feel for authenticity." Claire didn't need commentary. She had sweat, stamina, and a storyline unfolding in real time. By sunset, the coop gleamed. Claire had added a hand-painted emblem, a phoenix rising from roses. The internet went wild. That night, as they gathered for the wrap-up circle, Claire walked in covered in dirt and glory. Producers pulled her aside. "Viewer stats are exploding. People are obsessed. You've flipped the narrative." Claire arched an eyebrow. "I didn't flip anything. I just showed up." Across the fire pit, Lily sat untouched by the day's work, holding a warm mug she hadn't brewed. Claire caught her eye and smiled, soft, deadly. "Let them watch," she whispered. Social media detonated. Hashtag Claire Isqueen trended #1. Clips of her scrubbing troughs with grace, managing farm tools like weapons, and sketching art into her work flooded every feed. Side-by-sides of Claire's labour versus Lily's lounging sparked debate. One's a worker, the other's a prop. Give Claire the Emmy now. Claire's following doubled in 24 hours. Former critics backpedaled. Fan edits became tributes. Even brands chimed in. A coffee company tweeted, "When you grind like Claire Monroe, you deserve better beans. Hashtag respect the hustle." The Monroe Legion was no longer defending her. They were celebrating her. In the privacy of her cabin, Claire peeled off her gloves and sank into her desk chair. Her journal waited, pages eager for confession. Day 4. They tried to bury me in dirt, but they forgot I'm the seed. I didn't reclaim the spotlight. I became the sun. She closed the book and stared into the dark. No script, no filter, no apology, just grit, truth, and a performance so flawless that it silenced every critic. Claire didn't just do the work, she elevated it into something poetic. She transformed pigpens into metaphors, manure into material for rebirth. Viewers didn't just watch, they were mesmerized. Tweets became love letters, blogs became open confessions of regret for doubting her. She didn't merely flip the script, she rewrote it in calligraphy across America's consciousness. Just grit, truth, and a camera that finally caught it all. The next morning, Claire awoke to birdsong, and the dull ache of triumph etched into every fibre of her body. Her muscles throbbed from the day's labour before, but beneath the exhaustion lay a quiet satisfaction. Her victory wasn't celebrated with confetti or applause. It was painted on the coop walls, embedded in manure-streaked boots, and immortalised in the awe of the crew who witnessed her resilience firsthand. She dressed slowly, slipping into an old sweatshirt and lacing up her mud-stained boots like armour. Her hair was twisted into a tight braid, woven back from her face like a crown forged for battle. As she stepped outside, the early light poured over the horizon, casting a cinematic glow on the dew-covered earth. Birds sang, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed, heralding a new chapter. Ethan was already at work, hammering a stubborn fence post back into place. He looked up as Claire approached, her silhouette haloed by morning light. She held 2 cups of coffee, steam rising from them like smoke before a storm. "Didn't peg you for a sunrise kind of girl," he said with a hint of surprise, brushing sawdust from his hands. "You'd be surprised by how much I've changed," Claire replied, handing him a cup and taking a position beside him, leaning casually against the wooden post. They stood in shared silence for a few moments, watching the horses graze through the mist as the sun painted everything gold. "You were incredible yesterday," Ethan said quietly, not quite meeting her eyes. Everyone saw it. Even Lily had to shut up. Claire offered a simple nod. "Thanks." But Ethan wasn't finished. There was a weight behind his next words, something buried and trembling beneath. "I mean it," he said. "Watching you work, seeing you, it reminded me why I used to look at you like I couldn't breathe." Claire didn't turn to him. Her eyes stayed on the horses. Her silence was loud in any rejection. "Don't," she said at last. "Don't what?" "Don't rewrite history. You didn't look at me like that when it counted. You looked away." He stepped closer. The gap between them charged. "Maybe I was scared. Maybe I thought you were too good to be real." She turned then, slowly, deliberately. Her face was calm, her eyes clear, her voice cutting and poised. "Or maybe you believed the headlines. Maybe you thought the caricature the tabloids painted was easier to understand than the woman standing in front of you." Ethan's shoulders tightened. "That's not fair." Claire took a step closer, her tone turning cold and exact. "Isn't it? You think I've done all this? This show, this farm, this sweat, for you? That I crawled back from disgrace for some fairy tale ending?" His confusion was written plainly across his face. "Isn't it?" Her laugh came sharp, a blade of sound. "No, Ethan, this isn't your love story." She stepped in close, her words a whisper wrapped in iron. "You mistook admiration for affection. You saw strength and thought it meant I wanted to stand beside you. I don't. I never did." His mouth opened to respond, but there were no words. Claire didn't wait. "You were a chapter, not the plot." She turned on her heel and walked away, her steps light, her back unyielding. Behind her, Ethan remained rooted to the ground, the sunrise casting his long shadow across the broken fence like a relic of something forgotten. That afternoon, the show resumed with light tasks, garden tending, light repairs, and meal prep. Claire was paired with Travis again, while Ethan found himself partnered with Lily. Claire kept her focus locked on her work. She dug into the soil with methodical grace, sharing quiet laughs with Travis, her laughter vibrant and infectious, drifting through the farm like a melody Ethan hadn't heard in years. He glanced toward her more than once, lingering, longing, regret etched into every glance. Lily, ever attuned to weakness, smirked. "You thought she still had a soft spot for you, didn't you?" she said, with a voice as smooth as poison. Ethan didn't answer. "She's not yours, Ethan," Lily added, pulling her gloves off with a dramatic snap. "She never was." That evening, the golden hour faded into twilight. Claire retreated to her cabin, her journal waiting open on the desk like a confession booth. She sat down, pen poised, and wrote, "Day 5. He thought I'd come crawling back, but I didn't crawl, I soared. And when he reached out for what he thought he'd lost, he realized I was never his to claim. Some men confuse resilience with romance. I gave them grit, and they mistook it for love." She closed the book, extinguished the lamp, and pulled the quilt over her shoulders. No tears, no longing, just the cool silence of self-possession. Claire Monroe wasn't broken. She wasn't chasing. She wasn't waiting. She was already ahead, charting a story only she could write. The morning sun was still rising when Claire walked into the main house's kitchen, only to be greeted by the shrill sound of a spatula hitting a stainless steel counter. A producer with a clipboard and far too much excitement was already prepping the crew. "Big day today, folks. It's the Farmhouse Cook-Off Challenge." Claire blinked. Cook-off? That wasn't on the schedule. New twist. Lily's idea. Claire's jaw clenched. As if on cue, Lily swept into the room in a pale yellow sundress, looking like she'd stepped out of a farm-themed fashion catalogue. Her smile was all sunshine, but her eyes glinted with mischief. "Surprise! I thought it would be fun. Each contestant cooks a meal for the rest of the cast. Since Claire's such a natural at mucking stalls, I figured this would be a nice change." Claire met her gaze squarely. You want me to cook for 10 people? Alone? Lily's voice was honey-dipped venom. Is that a problem? I assumed someone so capable wouldn't mind. A camera zoomed in on Claire's expression. She smiled. Not at all. In fact, I was just thinking we should switch things up. Didn't you post weekly videos on animal care during the pandemic? You said you were an aspiring equestrian influencer. Lily froze. The crew chuckled. Even the sound operator snorted. Claire continued sweetly. Why don't you take over the barn today, and I'll handle the kitchen? You get your hands dirty, I get mine delicious. The producer lit up. Brilliant. Let's make it part of the challenge. Lily's face tightened, but she nodded. Sure. Anything for authenticity. Claire took to the kitchen with the focus of a general preparing for war. She tied her apron like armor and rolled up her sleeves. The ingredients were rustic, local eggs, garden tomatoes, homemade cheese, but her vision was gourmet. She planned a 3-course meal. Herbed omelettes with fire-roasted salsa, skillet cornbread with whipped honey butter, and baked apple crumble with cinnamon cream. Outside, Lily floundered in the barn. She flinched at every goat. She screamed when the chickens pecked her boots. Cameras caught every second. This is harder than it looks, she muttered, trying to shovel hay in designer gloves. Back in the kitchen, Claire worked like a conductor leading an orchestra. Her movements were swift and assured. Onions sizzling, apples softening in cinnamon sugar, cornbread golden and rising. Aromas filled the farmhouse, so potent they seemed to melt tension and egos alike. Travis popped his head in. Smells like heaven in here. Need a taste tester? Claire handed him a spoonful of salsa. His eyes widened. That's insane! By noon, the dishes were plated, warm and vibrant. Claire called everyone to the farmhouse dining table. The cast and crew sat, jaws slack, as dish after dish was placed before them. Ethan took a bite of the omelette and audibly groaned. I forgot food could taste like this. Travis raised a glass. To Claire Monroe, the woman who can wrestle pigs and poach eggs like a goddess. Everyone cheered. Lily arrived last, hair frizzed, blouse streaked with dirt. She dropped into her seat, eyes flicking over the food. Smells nice, she muttered. Claire smiled, unbothered. She leaned back and added for the cameras. Funny how roles flip, right? Barn life looked easy on Instagram, but I guess filters don't cover chicken bites. Meanwhile, turns out I can stir a pot in more ways than one. I saved you a plate. Lily took a bite. Her expression didn't change, but she didn't put her fork down. Her silence, for once, said more than any insult could. The next day, social media erupted. Clips of Claire chopping, sautéing, laughing in the golden light-flooded feeds. Food blogs reposted screen grabs. A cooking network offered her a guest spot. Hashtag Claire Can Cook trended for 6 hours. Meanwhile, Lily's barn antics became meme fodder. One popular post. Lily, mid-scream as a goat, nibbled her dress. Caption. From influencer to infested. Claire's redemption arc wasn't just surviving. It was a 5-star comeback. The cast's stunned reactions, groans of delight, wide-eyed disbelief, became instant gifs. Viewers flooded forums and fan pages with captions like, Claire didn't cook, she composed. Food blogs reposted screen grabs of her cinnamon cream drizzle. One post titled, The Actress Who Outcooked the Influencer, racked up 2 million likes in 24 hours. A major cooking network tweeted, inviting Claire for a guest episode. Claire's fanbase exploded. Even veteran chefs chimed in with praise. Reality television forums declared her dish a cultural reset. It was no longer a cook-off. It was a coronation. That night, Claire sat at her window, sipping tea as the stars blinked overhead. Her journal lay open. Day 6. They handed me a kitchen as a trap. I turned it into a stage. While she tried to humiliate me with dirt, I turned ingredients into applause. I don't need the spotlight. I'll build my own hearth, and they'll come just to feel the warmth. She closed the book. The world wasn't just watching anymore. It was hungry for more of her story. It began with whispers, subtle but unmistakable. The crew no longer scrambled to hide their favoritism. Camera operators lingered longer on Claire's scenes. Production assistants openly asked her advice. Even the gruff director, who once grunted her name like a chore, now nodded with something close to respect. Claire felt it shift like the air before a storm. The tide was turning. The story no longer belonged to Lily. At breakfast, a new task board had been posted. Claire approached it casually, but Lily's shriek broke the calm. "This is a joke, right?" Everyone turned. Lily stood frozen, face blanching, as she read her assignment. "Clean pigsty, groom livestock, handle cow feed." Claire, sipping her coffee, didn't react. She didn't need to. The crew already knew who had requested these roles for Claire the week before. Karma had a funny sense of humour and impeccable timing. "You can't be serious," Lily snapped at a nearby producer. "This is hazing. She's behind this." The producer raised his eyebrows. "Actually, it was random draw this time." Lily's glare darted to Claire, who offered her the faintest smile. By mid-morning, the set was chaos. Lily stomped through mud with the grace of a collapsing flamingo, flailing her arms and shrieking as her pristine boots were sucked deep into the muck. She kicked at the dirt in frustration, flinging sludge across a nearby camera lens, her voice rising in dramatic disbelief. "Why does it smell like this? A pig's supposed to live in this." She swung open the coop gate with a dramatic flair, only to be ambushed by an aggressive rooster. It flapped against her thigh with fury, forcing her into a spinning retreat that ended with her crashing into a haystack. "This is medieval punishment!" she yelled, attempting to compose herself as crew members pretended not to laugh. By the time she entered the livestock enclosure, her once ivory blouse was streaked with mud and straw. She approached the cow with hesitation, brush in hand, muttering curses between gritted teeth. "Easy, easy, stupid animal." The cow, sensing her hesitation and aggression, backed up, then, with one fluid motion, kicked. The impact was swift and brutal. Lily let out a strangled yelp as she was lifted off her feet and launched backward into a trough half filled with mucky water. Gasps echoed from the crew. Cameras pivoted like hawks. The director didn't even blink. "Keep rolling." Lily sputtered, soaked, hair plastered to her face, voice cracking with rage. "I'm done. I didn't sign up for this barnyard nightmare." Claire, from across the field, caught the scene in perfect view. She didn't smile, but the way she returned to her herb bed with graceful composure was louder than any laughter. Claire watched from afar, hands deep in soil as she tended the new herb bed. Around her, laughter rippled. Even the boom mic guy snorted. The footage aired within hours. #Moo Meltdown went viral. Commentary ranged from sympathetic to brutal, but the undercurrent was clear. The Queen had fallen, and the crew had picked a new crown. Later that afternoon, Ethan stormed up the garden path, his fists clenched at his sides and his jaw visibly twitching. His eyes were wild, not with concern, but with misplaced anger. "You set her up," he spat, as if accusation alone could rewrite reality. Claire straightened from her crouch near the time patch, wiping her hands on a worn towel with deliberate calm. "Excuse me? You think this is funny? Making her look like a fool on national television? This is humiliation. Planned." Claire stepped forward, her stance composed, her voice low and crystalline. "I didn't assign her those tasks, Ethan. The production team used a random draw. Or are you suggesting they're all in on my grand scheme too?" She's in tears. She could have been seriously hurt. Claire's eyes narrowed, her voice sharpening like a blade. "So was I. When you stood by as she baited me, twisted my words, painted me as unstable, but I didn't fall apart. I worked. I rose. I didn't scream. I didn't whine. And I certainly didn't get kicked into a trough because I disrespected the animal I was assigned to. Ethan's jaw tensed. You're not the same. You've changed. Claire's laugh was bitter silk. You're right, I have. I've stopped apologizing for being stronger than you expected. He stepped back slightly, as if the weight of her words knocked the breath from his chest. Claire folded her arms. You confuse clarity with cruelty. I'm not being mean, Ethan. I'm being done. The silence stretched. Even the birds stopped. She turned, the final blow soft but unmistakable. You should go check on her. Maybe next time, she'll respect the barn before it fights back. That evening, Claire stood at the edge of the field, wind tugging at her hair, the sun dipping low behind the barn. Around her, the crew wrapped up, lighter now, loyal in ways that weren't written in scripts. Her journal lay open in her hand. Day 7. Power doesn't shift. It's claimed. And today, the crown didn't fall into my lap. I earned it. While she drowned in tantrums and mud, I stood where I've always belonged. Not in her shadow, but under the sun. Claire closed the book. Tomorrow, the games would continue. But tonight, she had already won. The barn doors creaked open one last time. It wasn't part of the script. Claire stepped into the main set, rustic beams overhead, haze scattered in corners, a spotlight casting long shadows over the wooden floor. The air was heavy, not with dust, but anticipation. Lily was already there, standing by the camera rigs, lips pursed in that permanent pout of hers. The crew, silent and watching, stood back. They'd seen enough to know when something real was about to happen. Claire took her time crossing the floor. Every heel click echoed with purpose. When she stopped, it wasn't behind a podium or a confessional chair. It was center stage, where the truth could breathe. She looked Lily in the eye. Her voice rang out, firm and deliberate. You've lied your way through this entire show, Lily. Every smirk, every staged breakdown, every whisper into a producer's ear. You baited reactions like a puppeteer, desperate to spin every situation into your personal soap opera. You manipulated the edit, turned kindness into competition, and when that wasn't enough, you tried to make me the villain of your fairy tale. The crew stood still, eyes wide. A camera lens whirred quietly. Claire stepped closer, her presence towering despite her calm tone. You mocked my return with fake concern, smeared my name with passive-aggressive jabs, and clung to Ethan not because you loved him, but because you feared what it would look like if he didn't love you back. Lily's mouth opened, but Claire raised a hand to silence her. You tried to turn the world against me with crocodile tears and well-timed camera glances. You thought I would crack. You thought I would crumble. But here's the part you never planned for. I didn't have to destroy you to survive. I just had to let you destroy yourself. She let the silence hang, watching Lily flinch under the weight of truth. All I had to do was stand still and let your mask slip. Lily stepped forward, voice trembling. This isn't fair. Fair? Claire's voice rose slightly, slicing through the barn. You played dirty from the start. I came here to rebuild. You came to sabotage. The difference? I succeeded. Claire turned to the camera, direct, raw. To anyone watching this, ask yourself, when did authenticity become a threat? When did quiet strength become something to fear? I didn't fight for screen time. I earned respect. Lily's voice cracked. You're trying to humiliate me. Claire didn't even blink. Number, I'm telling the truth. The humiliation, that's yours to carry. The confrontation aired that night, unedited. It was a cultural detonation. Social media ignited. Twitter erupted with praise. Claire Monroe just delivered the monologue of the decade, tweeted one user, racking up over 500,000 likes. TikTok recreated her lines with cinematic flair, black and white filters, orchestral soundtracks, captions like, "When truth hits harder than fiction." Reddit threads read like a live tribute. Fans analyzed her every pause, every blink, calling it a masterclass in composed confrontation. And Lily? She was devoured by the digital tide. Memes swarmed every platform, her scream in the barn, the cow trough fall, her broken whimpers during Claire's monologue. Her apologies were ratioed into oblivion. Her followers plummeted overnight. Claire, meanwhile, became a viral symbol of integrity. Media outlets called it the moment authenticity finally triumphed on reality television. Hashtag sword. Hashtag Claire wins everything. Hashtag truth speaks louder. Hashtag Monroe moment. Hashtag justice served in heels. Offers rolled in for Claire. From top-tier interviews to designer fashion houses, the floodgates of opportunity opened. But Claire, poised as ever, declined most with quiet authority. She wasn't chasing clout. She wasn't playing into the media circus. She was reclaiming her narrative. She chose instead to launch her own platform, a documentary project focused on resilience, women in media, and the high cost of public perception. It wasn't glamour, it was grit, it was hers. And the world noticed. The New York Times called her the quiet storm who rewrote her ending. Vogue featured her on the cover under the headline, "The Graceful Reclamation of Claire Monroe." With dignity as her compass, she signed on to one project, a documentary, not about scandal, but about survival, truth, and how women are shaped by the fires meant to consume them. She launched a mentorship foundation for women in the arts, choosing to amplify voices that had been drowned out like hers once was. Publications declared it a career renaissance. Claire Monroe didn't return to the spotlight. She rebuilt it and made it brighter for the rest of us. She was no longer the comeback story. She was the blueprint. In the final reunion episode, the host asked her, "If you could say one thing to your former self, the Claire who almost didn't come back, what would it be?" Claire smiled. "You were always enough. You just needed the world to stop shouting long enough to hear you." That night, she walked the pasture one last time. Stars scattered across the sky like sequins on velvet. The barn lights flickered off behind her. Her journal was full. But her story? It was just beginning. Day 10. I didn't win by being louder. I won by being clearer. I didn't need to break her. I just needed to shine. And now, the only thing I carry forward is truth, and the power to never let it be stolen again.